Hello, it's 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and this is The Ambassador. With me, your ambassador, Paul Mathenge. Now, to our first story, Uganda is facing a new Ebola outbreak after the death of a nurse from the Sudan strain of the virus. Health officials have confirmed the nurse passed away on Wednesday, marking the first fatality since the country's last outbreak ended in 2023. Authorities are now tracing contacts of the deceased, including healthcare workers, as they work to contain the virus. More on this developing story from Teresa Chengo. Let's listen.
The Ministry of Health in Uganda has confirmed an outbreak of Ebola Sudan strain which has already claimed the life of a 32-year-old nurse, marking the first fatality from the disease in 2 years. The nurse passed away on Wednesday at a hospital in Kampala after receiving prompt medical intervention following symptoms of a high fever, chest pain, difficulty in breathing, and bleeding. Despite the efforts, he shortly died after testing positive for Ebola. Health authorities are now tracing 40 individuals who had contact with him to prevent further transmission. Uganda's Ministry of Health has reassured the public that they are in full control of the situation, although the lack of an approved vaccine from the Sudan strain complicates effort to contain the virus, urging the public to stay vigilant and follow preventive measures and report any suspected cases immediately. This is Uganda's 9th outbreak of Ebola, with the first recorded case in 2000. Authorities are taking swift action to contain the situation and prevent wider spread of the virus, with health officials still investigating the source of the current outbreak. Teresa Chengo, GBS News.
In Goma, the aftermath of fierce fighting between M23 rebels and Congolese forces is evident, with bodies still lying on the streets and much of the city without power or water. The M23, backed by Rwanda, has seized control of Goma and is now threatening to move deeper into South Kivu province and possibly toward the capital, Kinshasa. The conflict intensifies. President Felix Tshisekedi promises a strong response. Irene Juguna has more.
The streets of Goma are grim today, with bodies, many in military uniforms, still scattered across the city, a stark reminder of the violence that has plagued the area since the 26th of January. The fighting between M23 rebels and the Congolese armed forces has left the city in chaos, and despite calls from M23 to reopen businesses, most of Goma remains without electricity and water. The M23, originally formed in 2012 by ex-Tutsi rebels with Rwandan support, reignited their rebellion in 2021. Since then, the violence has displaced 500,000 people and made the humanitarian crisis in eastern Congo even worse. In Goma, hundreds of Congolese soldiers, police officers, and militia members have been seen being escorted by M23 rebels. The rebels claim these soldiers have surrendered and will be integrated into their ranks after undergoing training. As the situation in Goma becomes more unstable, the M23 has said they plan to advance further into South Kivu province, possibly pushing towards Kinshasa, the capital. The United Nations estimates that the M23 is being backed by around 4,000 Rwandan soldiers, a much larger force than the group had in 2012. This growing military presence has left residents in Goma and nearby areas in fear, with many continuing to flee the region, wary of further violence. The city remains on edge, with the ongoing conflict threatening to escalate even further. Reporting for GPS News, Irene Juguna.
France has completed the withdrawal of its military forces from Chad, officially handing over its last base. This move follows Chad's decision to end the defense agreement between the two nations, with France also embracing a broader shift away from maintaining permanent military bases in Central and West Africa. The handover marks a new phase in the evolving relationship between France and its former African allies. Teresa Chengo reports.
2 months after Chad severed its defense agreement with Paris, the French army has handed over its last military base in the country. Although Chad announced the end of defense pact, the head of the French Armed Forces Africa Command stated that the handover was partly France's decision.
The transfer of the Kassai base today marks a new stage. It is part of the French decision to end permanent military bases in Central and West Africa. This structural change is necessary to adapt to the evolution of the world and the evolution of Africa. We are reaffirming our partnership in a dynamic Africa whose youth carries a lot of hope. We must act differently.
The Chadian Army's chief of staff has praised the end of defense ties with Paris.
I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who gives us the opportunity to make this dream a reality. I announce to you today that the work of the French army is coming to an end, and the Chadian army is capable of taking over the role that the French army plays in Chad.
Before the end of the agreement, France had around 1,000 personnel in Chad. After battling Islamic extremists along regional soldiers, French forces have also been expelled from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Triza Tiengo, GBS News.
The black boxes from the passenger jet that collided with a USA Army helicopter over Washington, killing all 67 people aboard, have been recovered. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, is leading the investigation into the crash, which occurred as the regional jet was landing at Ronald Reagan National Airport. The cockpit, voice, and flight data recorders are being analyzed at NTSB labs. At least 28 bodies were recovered from the Potomac River, where the plane carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members was found upside down in the 3 sections. The helicopter, which had 3 soldiers aboard, is also part of the investigation. President Donald Trump initially blamed air traffic controllers and the helicopter pilots, claiming warnings were too late. On Friday, China confirmed 2 of its nationals died in the crash and urged the U.S. to provide updates on the investigation and clarify the case. Now, a major prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas has taken place, marking a significant moment in the ongoing conflict. The exchange has seen the release of 110 Palestinian prisoners in return for 8 hostages held in Gaza. Among those freed is a high-profile Palestinian militant, Zakaria Zubeidi, whose release has sparked celebration across the West Bank. Zakaria Zubeidi is a former leader of the Matthias Brigade, who is celebrated by many Palestinians as a symbol of resistance, but regarded by Israelis as responsible for deadly attacks during the Second Intifada. Thousands gathered in welcome him and others home, waving flags and containing slogans of victory. For Palestinians, these exchanges are seen as the triumph of their struggle for freedom. The exchange is part of a broader ceasefire agreement brokered by international mediators, including the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. This exchange is part of a larger agreement that could see up to 1,900 Palestinian prisoners released in the stages of exchange for 33 hostages still held by Hamas. However, with some hostages feared dead and tensions are running high on both sides, the road ahead remains uncertain. The ambassador will take a short break, but we will be right back with more.
How can I start the missionary school? And God was giving me the heart to start the missionary school. In 1972, my most beautiful daughter was born. I didn't raise my daughter, but God raised my daughter, so she was raised so wonderfully to work for the gospel. And so 1976, the missionary school was born. And I feel so moved as the church is moving for the gospel. The pastor lives for this.
Fun. And the hyenas were there. They wanted to snatch the baby and tear that baby into pieces and eat.
Today, we're going to make a cactus in a pot. Hey, you, cold on. Are you biting your thumb at me?
I love my mommy. I love my mommy. Yes, I do.
Are you going to show love to your friend? I'm sure you are going to do that.
Friends, until next time, bye!
What is always before you but can't be seen?
Kudiscover talent.
Kudiscover ulijuangaje like unaweza imba like yeah.
Kini Trace Jumi Kipchoge kwa ngoma na mfala wanani dis na wanabonga kwa ngoma mafan jua ananipenda ndo nazidi kwa roga wenye walenjaribu manze walishachoka na nikozabe meditation naendelesha generation niliofanya kalki.
Wewe at 1 year old ulikuwa unafanya nini? You're feeling the vibe. Ulitoa a few days ago, unaweza taka utuambie like ulikuwa unafikiria nini when you came up with the lyrics? Yeah.
So I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing. And if you're tryna win, you can be on my team. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing.
You feel like you're young at heart, I'm an old soul. If you could only listen to one singer or band for the rest of your life, who will you choose?
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome to the ambassador. Now, after more than a year in captivity, Israeli soldier Egan Berger has been released by Hamas as part of ceasefire agreement. She was among 5 female Israeli soldiers kidnapped in the October 7th Hamas attacks. 4 others were released last week. Let's take a listen.
After months of fear and insanity, Egan Berger is finally home. Hamas released her on Thursday as a part of the ongoing ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Before her transfer to the Red Cross, Berger was paraded through the heavily damaged Jabalia refugee camp. The emotional release marked the end of her captivity. Along with Berger, 2 Israeli civilians, Albel Yohud, 29 years old, and Gadi Moses, who is 80 years, were also freed, as well as 5 Thai agricultural workers. The exchange is part of a larger agreement between the two sides. In return, Israel is expected to release 110 Palestinian prisoners, including 30 children. The government has delayed their release after the scene of chaos in Gaza during previous exchange. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the hostage handover in Gaza shocking after images showed masked gunmen leading captives drew crowds. Since the ceasefire began on January 19th, a total of 15 hostages have been freed. However, 82 captives remain in Gaza, awaiting their turn for freedom. Back in Israel, Beggar was reunited with her parents. Her mother, in tears, held her close and promised, "We are here and we are never leaving you." The ceasefire deal is expected to secure the release of 33 hostages in its first week. Families on both sides watch and wait, hoping for good news soon. Jay Kuria, GBS News.
A shocking new development in the case of against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Federal prosecutors have filed a new indictment, expanding the timeline of alleged abuse and adding more victims to their case. The details are disturbing, as investigators now say Combs used violence, threats for nearly 2 decades.
Sean Diddy's Combs trafficked at least 3 women in his 20-year sexual abuse scheme, prosecutors said on Thursday in filing a new criminal indictment against the hip-hop mogul. The indictment does not add new charges, but expand the scope of the alleged crime. According to prosecutors, Combs engaged in a pattern of sex trafficking, using his power, money, and influence to lure victims into what he called freak-offs. These events, often lasting days, were reportedly filmed and fueled by a variety of illegal drugs, including ketamine, ecstasy, methamphetamine, and psychedelic mushrooms. This indictment also alleges that Combs not only abused women, but also employees and witnesses to his action. His legal team calls the new claim ridiculous, arguing that the government is mischaracterizing relationship and that Combs is innocent. He has pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking and prosecution and remain in custody at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. Combs' trial is set on May 5th, where he is expected to continue fighting the charges, but in the meantime, he also faces numerous civil lawsuits from both men and women alleging sexual assault and misconduct. Jay Kuria, GBS News.
The black boxes from a passenger jet that collided with a U.S. Army helicopter over Washington, killing all 67 people aboard, have been recovered. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, is leading the investigation into the crash, which occurred as the regional jet was landing at Ronald Reagan National Airport. The cockpit voice and flight data recorders are being analyzed at NTSB labs. At least 28 bodies were recovered from the Potomac River, where the plane, carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members, was found upside down in 3 sections. The helicopter, which had 3 soldiers aboard, is also part of the investigation. President Donald Trump initially blamed air traffic controllers and the helicopter pilots, claiming warnings were too late. On Friday, China confirmed 2 of its nationals died in the crash and urged the U.S. to provide updates on the investigation and clarifying the cause. And now, that all was the news with me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge, on the Ambassador 1 p.m. You can follow all of our stories at GBS TV Africa. It's updated through the day. Thank you for your time and company.